Meet Zach Porter, 19 years old, cocky as hell, and about to become humanity's most unlikely savior. Now, you might be wondering how someone who still uses a fake ID to buy energy drinks ended up as the chief navigator of the Terran Defense Fleet's flagship. Well, that's a heartwarming tale of nepotism, falsified test scores, and one very influential uncle who runs the Naval Academy. Zach had exactly 3 qualifications for this job. He could spell navigation correctly on most days, he'd played every space combat simulator ever made, and his Uncle Jerry happened to be Admiral Jeremiah Porter, the guy who signs the paychecks. In Zach's defense, he was genuinely convinced that 14 years of video games had prepared him for actual space travel. After all, how different could real life be from Galaxy Conquest 7, Revenge of the Star Destroyers? The answer, as it turns out, is very different. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Picture this, the bridge of the starship Defiant Luck, humanity's most advanced vessel, which is currently running on the space equivalent of duct tape and hope. Captain Rex Ironwood, a man so grizzled he probably fought in wars that haven't been invented yet, that stands behind Zach's navigation console wearing the expression of someone who just realized he's about to die because of administrative incompetence. "So, Navigator Porter," Captain Ironwood says, his voice carrying the weight of 40 years in space and a growing suspicion that the universe has a twisted sense of humor. "Have you actually navigated anything before today?" Zach swivels in his chair, flashing his most confident smile. "Well, sir, I did get us from Earth to the outer colonies without any major incidents. The autopilot was engaged the entire time." "Yeah, but I was supervising it. That's basically the same thing, right?" Captain Ironwood closes his eyes and counts to 10 in 3 different alien languages. This is not going well, and they haven't even reached the impossible part yet. "You see, about 6 hours ago, the long-range sensors picked up something that made every military strategist in the fleet simultaneously reach for either their weapons or their resignation letters. An alien armada of unprecedented size heading straight for human space. Not the usual, let's talk this out over space coffee kind of aliens, but the we're here to turn your planets into cosmic dust variety." The evacuation order went out immediately. 50,000 colonists needed to be moved from the outer settlements, and the only escape route that wouldn't lead them directly into alien weapons fire was through a charming little region of space known as the Shattered Nebula. "The good news," Captain Ironwood continues, "is that the aliens probably won't follow us into the nebula." "And the bad news?" Zach asks, though his tone suggests he's not entirely sure he wants to know. "The bad news is that nobody has ever successfully navigated the Shattered Nebula and lived to tell about it. It's called the ship graveyard for very good reasons, most of which involve the fundamental laws of physics having nervous breakdowns." Zach nods thoughtfully, as if he's processing this information instead of wondering whether his life insurance policy covers death by cosmic anomaly. "So, no pressure then?" "None whatsoever," Captain Ironwood replies. "Just the fate of human civilization resting on your shoulders." The briefing room aboard the Defiant Luck looks exactly like what you'd expect from a military vessel designed by people who think intimidating gray is the height of interior decorating. Around the holographic display table sit the officers who will either become heroes of humanity or very well-educated space debris. Admiral Vera Steelheart enters the room like a force of nature wearing military dress uniform. She's the kind of woman who could stare down a black hole and make it blink first. Her reputation for eating competent officers for breakfast is only slightly exaggerated. She usually waits until lunch. "Ladies, gentlemen, and Navigator Porter," she begins, because apparently Zach exists in his own special category of concern. "We have approximately 6 hours before the Cathara Empire's fleet reaches the outer colonies. The evacuation is proceeding, but we have a problem." The holographic display flickers to life, showing a 3-dimensional map of local space. A massive red blob representing the alien fleet moves inexorably towards several blue dots marking human settlements. Between them lies what can only be described as cosmic spaghetti, a twisted, multicolored mass of swirling energy and spatial distortions. This is the Shattered Nebula, Admiral Steelheart continues. It's our only route to safety, and it's also the single most dangerous navigation hazard in known space. Chief Engineer Murphy McWrench, a man whose pessimism is matched only by his ability to keep impossible machinery running, raises his hand. Begging your pardon, Admiral, but dangerous might be understating things a wee bit. That nebula has more ways to kill us than I have ways to fix EM, and I've been fixing things that shouldn't work for 30 years. Dr. Quinton Know-it-all, the fleet's science officer and owner of several advanced degrees in being insufferably correct, adjusts his glasses. Actually, Murphy, the Shattered Nebula presents 17 distinct categories of lethal phenomena, including but not limited to gravitational anomalies, temporal distortions, exotic matter interactions, and something we've termed aggressive physics violations. Aggressive physics violations? Zach asks, because that sounds like something he should probably understand. Imagine reality having a temper tantrum, Dr. Know-it-all explains. Space and time occasionally decide they don't like each other very much in there. Murphy nods grimly. Last expedition that went in, they found one of their ships arriving 3 days before it left. The crew was so confused they filed a complaint with the Department of Temporal Paradoxes. Admiral Steelheart silences the room with a look that could melt titanium. The point is, we need someone crazy enough to attempt navigation through an impossible maze of death and destruction. Someone with nothing to lose and possibly nothing upstairs to lose it with. All eyes turn to Zach, who suddenly feels like he's been volunteered for something that definitely wasn't in the job description. Wait, are you saying I'm the best option because I'm too stupid to know better? That's putting it rather bluntly, Captain Ironwood says diplomatically. But not inaccurately, Admiral Steelheart adds. Dr. Know-it-all pulls up more detailed scans of the nebula. The gravitational fields shift every 3.7 minutes. The electromagnetic interference makes instruments unreliable at best, and there's a 97% probability that any conventional navigation approach will result in catastrophic failure. What about an unconventional approach? Zach asks, trying to sound like he knows what that might entail. Well, Dr. Know-it-all muses, theoretically, if someone were to completely ignore established navigation protocols, abandon all logical flight patterns, and essentially navigate by pure instinct and dumb luck, there might be a 2% chance of success. Murphy snorts. 2%. Doc, I wouldn't bet 2 credits on those odds. Good thing we're not betting credits, Admiral Steelheart says grimly. We're betting the survival of human civilization. Zach looks around the room at the faces of humanity's finest military minds, all of whom are looking back at him with expressions ranging from desperate hope to barely concealed terror. He does what any reasonable 19-year-old would do in this situation. He pretends he knows what he's doing and hopes nobody notices. So, when do we leave? He asks, as if piloting 50 ships through a cosmic death maze is just another Tuesday. In 2 hours, Admiral Steelheart replies. I suggest you use that time to make peace with whatever deities you believe in. I'm more of an agnostic, Zach says. Perfect. Then you won't be disappointed when they don't help. 2 hours later, Zach finds himself staring at the most terrifyingly beautiful thing he's ever seen. The Shattered Nebula stretches across space like a cosmic kaleidoscope having a seizure, with colors that don't have names and patterns that hurt to look at directly. It's the kind of view that makes you question both your life choices and the fundamental nature of reality. Elite formation holding steady, reports Lieutenant Torres from the communications station. 51 ships ready for entry, including 37 civilian transports carrying the colonists. Captain Ironwood paces behind Zach's navigation console like a caged tiger with anger management issues. Navigator Porter, I want you to understand something very clearly. Those civilian ships are filled with families, children, people who trusted us to keep them safe. Their lives are in your hands. No pressure, Zach mutters, frantically scrolling through the navigation manual on his tablet while pretending to study stellar cartography data. Oh, and Porter? Captain Ironwood adds. The instant I think you're going to get us all killed, I'm relieving you of duty and taking manual control. That's actually kind of reassuring, sir. It shouldn't be. I've never navigated anything more complex than a straight line. The fleet approaches the nebula's edge, and immediately every instrument on the bridge starts having what can only be described as a nervous breakdown. Warning lights flash, alarms blare, and several displays start showing readings that violate basic mathematical principles. Gravitational sensors are going mad, Murphy reports from engineering. According to this, we're simultaneously experiencing zero gravity and the equivalent of a black hole's pull. Dr. Know-it-all studies his instruments with the expression of someone watching their PhD in physics catch fire. The electromagnetic spectrum has apparently decided to reorganize itself. We're detecting colors that theoretically can't exist. Focus, people. Admiral Steelheart commands. Porter, what's your assessment? Zack stares at his navigation display, which looks like someone fed a rainbow to a blender and then connected it to a random number generator. In his most confident voice, he announces, well, according to these readings, we're about to enter a region of space where the laws of physics are more like friendly suggestions. That's not technically inaccurate, Dr. Know-it-all admits grudgingly. Fleet command to all ships, Admiral Steelheart broadcasts. We are beginning entry into the Shattered Nebula. Maintain close formation and follow the lead ship's navigation exactly. Any deviation could be fatal. Zack's hands hover over the navigation controls. In video games, this would be the moment for an epic speech about courage and determination. In reality, it's the moment when he realizes he has absolutely no idea what he's doing and is about to prove it to 50,000 people. Here goes nothing, he mutters and engages the engines. The fleet enters the nebula, and immediately everything goes wrong in ways that would impress chaos theorists. The Defiant Luck is hit by a gravitational wave that sends it spinning like a washing machine full of bowling balls. The ship's artificial gravity decides to take a coffee break, sending everyone floating toward the ceiling. Emergency thrusters online. Murphy shouts from somewhere near the light fixtures. Though I'm not entirely sure which direction is up anymore. Through the main viewport, they watch as the nebula's interior reveals itself in all its impossible glory. Chunks of shattered space drift by like cosmic icebergs, each one distorting light and matter in fascinating and terrifying ways. Energy storms rage between formations of crystallized time, and in the distance, something that might be a star appears to be singing. Navigation sensors are completely useless, Zack reports, trying to sound professional while upside down. I'm flying blind here. Then how are you planning to navigate? Captain Ironwood demands. Zack grins with the confidence of someone too young to understand mortality. Easy. I'm going to use the Force. The what now? You know, trust my instincts, feel my way through, let the cosmic flow guide me. It works great in video games. Captain Ironwood and Admiral Steelheart exchange a look that clearly says they're about to die because they put their faith in someone whose primary qualification is having thumbs. Porter, Admiral Steelheart says carefully, this might not be the best time to mention this, but video games aren't actually real. Yeah, Zack replies, adjusting the ship's trajectory to avoid what appears to be a sentient asteroid, but neither is this place, apparently. As if to prove his point, they pass through a region where space has been folded into origami shapes, and everyone's reflection in the viewport starts waving at them independently. Okay, Captain Ironwood says weakly, that's a fair point. 30 minutes into their journey through cosmic impossibility, Murphy's predictions begin coming true with the reliability of a Swiss chronometer designed by pessimists. The first sign of trouble is when the ship's computer announces, in its annoyingly cheerful synthetic voice, warning, multiple critical system failures detected. Have a nice day. Define multiple, Captain Ironwood orders. Life support, navigation, weapons, artificial gravity, the coffee machine, and apparently our will to live, Murphy reports from engineering. where sparks are flying in patterns that spell out curse words in 3 different languages. Also, the emergency backup systems have filed for early retirement. Dr. Know-It-All stares at his instrument readings with the expression of someone watching the universe fail a basic competency test. The nebula's interference is worse than we calculated. Our sensors are now telling us we're simultaneously inside the nebula, outside the nebula, and somehow orbiting ourselves. That last one might actually be accurate, Zach observes, watching his navigation display show their position as a question mark surrounded by crying emoji. Things get progressively worse when Admiral Steelheart receives a communication that makes her expression shift from professionally concerned to personally offended by the universe. Fleet Command, this is Admiral Steelheart. Please tell me you have good news. Ma-am, crackles the voice of Commander Hayes from the rear guard. The Cathara fleet has somehow followed us into the nebula. They're approximately 1 hour behind us and gaining ground. The bridge falls silent except for the sound of Murphy's engineering console having what appears to be a complete mental breakdown, complete with smoke and sparks that smell faintly of despair. How is that possible? Captain Ironwood demands. Nobody follows anyone into the Shattered Nebula. It's suicide. Dr. Know-It-All adjusts his glasses nervously. Actually, I may have a theory about that. What if the Cathara Empire has encountered this type of spatial anomaly before? What if they have specialized navigation techniques that? What if they're just as crazy as we are? Zach interrupts. Sometimes the simplest explanation is the right one. That's not how Occam's razor works, Dr. Know-It-All protests. Maybe not, but it's how Murphy's law works, and that seems more relevant right now. As if summoned by the mention of his law, Murphy's voice echoes from the engineering deck. Captain, I've got more bad news. The navigation computer has been lying to us this whole time. Those readings we've been trusting? It's complete fiction. We've been navigating by fairy tales and wishful thinking. Zach stares at his console, where the navigation display now shows their route as a series of happy faces and rainbow unicorns. Okay, that explains why some of these readings seemed optimistic. How optimistic? Admiral Steelheart asks, though her tone suggests she already knows she won't like the answer. Well, according to this, we should have reached our destination 3 hours ago. Our fuel efficiency is roughly 400% better than physically possible, and we're apparently being guided by the spirit of humanity's hopes and dreams. Captain Ironwood rubs his temples, feeling a headache that exists in several dimensions simultaneously. So what you're telling me is that we're lost in the most dangerous region of space, being chased by aliens, our instruments are useless, and our navigation computer has suffered a complete psychological breakdown. That's about the size of it, sir. And the colonist ships. Lieutenant Torres checks her communications board, which is currently displaying what appears to be abstract art instead of actual data. We've lost contact with 17 ships, 12 are reporting critical system failures, and the rest are asking if anyone knows where we're supposed to be going. Murphy's voice crackles over the intercom with the kind of cheerful pessimism that only comes from years of expecting the worst and rarely being disappointed. Oh, and Captain. Remember how I said the engines were held together with duct tape and prayers? Well, the prayers just stopped working, and we're running low on duct tape. Admiral Steelheart looks around the bridge at the faces of her officers, seeing her own grim realization reflected in their expressions. They're not just lost in space, they're lost in a region of space where being lost might be the least of their problems. Porter, she says quietly, please tell me you have some kind of plan. Zach looks at his useless instruments, thinks about the 50,000 lives depending on him, considers the alien fleet breathing down their necks, and does what any rational person would do in his situation. He panics. Plan? He squeaks, his voice jumping an octave. My plan was to follow the navigation computer. The navigation computer that's apparently been reading us bedtime stories instead of actual coordinates. So what do we do now? Captain Ironwood asks. Zach takes a deep breath, looks out at the swirling chaos of the nebula, and realizes something important. He's already failed in every conventional sense, which means he has absolutely nothing left to lose. Now, he says, cracking his knuckles like he's about to attempt the boss level in the universe's most dangerous video game, we try something really stupid. Sometimes the difference between brilliance and stupidity is nothing more than whether it works or not. Zach Porter is about to discover which category his next decision falls into, though given the circumstances, the distinction might be purely academic. Okay, Zach announces, his hands hovering over the navigation controls like a pianist preparing for the world's most dangerous concert. But I'm going to do something that would get me kicked out of any respectable navigation academy. You were never in a respectable navigation academy, Captain Ironwood points out. Exactly. Which means I'm uniquely qualified to try something that no properly trained navigator would ever attempt. Dr. Know-It-All looks up from his instruments, which have given up pretending to make sense and are now displaying what appears to be interpretive dance. What exactly are you planning to do? I'm going to stop fighting the nebula, Zach explains, his confidence growing with each word. Every navigation protocol we have is designed to maintain control, to force our ships to go where we want them to go. But what if that's exactly the wrong approach here? Admiral Steelheart raises an eyebrow. Are you suggesting we just let the nebula carry us wherever it wants? Think about it, Zach continues, warming to his theme. This whole region is called the ship graveyard, right? But what if it's not because the nebula destroys ships, but because those ships tried to fight their way through instead of working with it? Murphy's voice crackles over the intercom, lad. That's either the most brilliant thing I've ever heard, or the most suicidal. Possibly both. There's only one way to find out, Zach says, and before anyone can stop him, he shuts down the primary navigation systems. The bridge falls silent except for the ambient hum of the ship's engines and the distant sound of Murphy having what might be a heart attack in engineering. On the main display, their trajectory begins to change as the nebula's gravitational currents catch hold of the Defiant Luck. Navigation sensors offline, Lieutenant Torres reports, her voice carefully neutral. We're now flying entirely on sensor readings and pure instinct. How are the other ships handling this? Captain Ironwood asks. About as well as you'd expect, Admiral Steelheart replies, monitoring the fleet communications. Half of them think we've lost our minds, and the other half think we've achieved some kind of transcendent enlightenment. Zach watches the swirling patterns of energy outside the viewport, and suddenly something clicks in his brain. Maybe it's the stress, maybe it's the cosmic radiation, or maybe it's just the fact that he spent most of his life thinking like a gamer instead of a navigator. But he starts to see something that nobody else has noticed. It's not random, he breathes. The patterns, the energy flows, the gravitational currents, they're not chaotic at all. They're like a river system. Dr. Know-It-All stops pretending his instruments work and looks at the nebula with fresh eyes. My God, you're right. The energy patterns do follow predictable channels. But how did you see that when our sensors couldn't detect it? Because I wasn't looking for what I expected to find, Zach explains. I was looking at what was actually there. And what's actually there is a navigation system. A navigation system? Captain Ironwood asks. Not built by us, Zach clarifies, his excitement growing. Built by whoever was here before. This whole nebula isn't a natural phenomenon, it's an ancient alien maze. Murphy's voice pipes up from engineering. Well, that explains why conventional navigation doesn't work. You can't brute force your way through a maze designed by someone else. You have to follow the path they built. Admiral Steelheart studies the tactical display, where the fleet's new trajectory is starting to make sense for the first time since they entered the nebula. Porter, you're telling me that instead of trying to navigate through this death trap, we should be following a path that's already here? Exactly. And the best part is, conventional navigation training would actually make it harder to see the path. because it teaches you to fight against external forces instead of working with them. As if to prove his point, the ship suddenly glides smoothly through a series of gravitational anomalies that should have torn them apart, riding the energy currents like a surfer on a cosmic wave. Dr. Know-It-All frantically recalibrates his instruments, trying to make sense of readings that finally seem to follow some kind of logic. The alien technology is incredibly sophisticated. It's using the nebula's natural phenomena to create a navigation network that's invisible to conventional sensors, but perfectly functional once you understand how to read it. How do we know the aliens who built this weren't hostile? Lieutenant Torres asks. Because Zack grins, if they were hostile, this maze would be designed to kill anyone who entered it. Instead, it's designed to guide them safely through. This isn't a trap, it's a highway. Murphy's engineering report crackles over the intercom. Whatever we're doing, it's working. The ship's stress readings have dropped to normal levels, and the engines are purring like a contented cat. It's like the nebula is helping us instead of trying to kill us. For the first time since entering the Shattered Nebula, the bridge crew allows themselves to hope that they might actually survive this experience. The fleet moves through the alien navigation network with increasing confidence, following paths that had been invisible to human technology but become obvious once you know how to look for them. Fleet status report. Admiral Steelheart requests. All ships accounted for and following our trajectory, Lieutenant Torres reports. The colonist transports are reporting smooth sailing for the first time since we entered the nebula. And the Cathara fleet? Still behind us, but they appear to be having difficulties. Their conventional navigation approach isn't working any better than ours did initially. Zack settles back in his navigation chair, finally confident that his completely insane plan might actually work. Sometimes the best way to solve an impossible problem is to stop treating it like a problem and start treating it like an opportunity. That, Captain Ironwood admits, is either profound wisdom or the ramblings of someone suffering from cosmic radiation poisoning. Why not both? Zack asks cheerfully, guiding the fleet deeper into the alien maze with the confidence of someone who has finally found his element. 3 hours later, the Terran Defense Fleet emerges from the Shattered Nebula like a group of tourists stepping off the universe's most terrifying amusement park ride. The exit point reveals itself as a shimmering curtain of energy that parts before them, revealing normal space filled with wonderfully boring stars that behave exactly as physics textbooks say they should. Fleet status report. Admiral Steelheart commands, though her voice carries a note of amazement that she's actually able to request a status report from living crew members. All 51 ships accounted for, Lieutenant Torres announces with barely concealed relief. Minimal damage, no casualties, and according to these readings, we're exactly where we planned to be. Captain Ironwood stares at the tactical display showing their perfect formation emerging from what should have been their collective grave. Porter, do you have any idea what you just accomplished? Zack looks back at the nebula, which from this side appears as nothing more than a colorful cloud of cosmic dust and energy. I got us through alive? You didn't just get us through alive, Dr. Know-It-All says, frantically taking readings that will probably form the basis of several scientific papers that nobody will believe. You discovered an ancient alien navigation network, developed an entirely new approach to cosmic piloting, and successfully guided 50,000 people through the most dangerous region of known space. Also, Murphy adds over the intercom, you proved that sometimes the best way to fix something is to stop trying to fix it and start trying to understand it. Admiral Steelheart checks the long-range sensors, confirming what everyone hopes to be true. The Cathara fleet is still trapped in the nebula. Their conventional navigation approach has them going in circles, and it'll be days before they find their way out, if they ever do. Zack grins, finally allowing himself to believe that his completely insane plan actually worked. So we're safe? We're safe, Captain Ironwood confirms. The colonists are secure, the alien fleet is neutralized, and humanity lives to see another day, all because our navigator was too inexperienced to know that what he was attempting was impossible. Actually, Dr. Know-it-all interjects, I think it worked because he was inexperienced. A trained navigator would have spent so much time trying to apply conventional techniques that he never would have been open to recognizing an unconventional solution. Murphy's laughter echoes from engineering, so what you're saying is that sometimes the best qualification for an impossible job is having no qualifications at all. That, Admiral Steelheart says dryly, is either a profound insight into the nature of problem solving or a terrifying indictment of our training programs. As the fleet sets course for the inner colonies, Zack receives a communication from the lead civilian transport. The ship's captain appears on screen, an elderly woman whose expression shifts from relief to gratitude to something approaching awe. "Navigator Porter," she says, "I speak for all 50,000 colonists when I say thank you. We owe our lives to your courage and skill." Zack feels a warmth in his chest that has nothing to do with cosmic radiation. "Just doing my job, ma'am." "No," she replies, "you were doing something much more important. You were thinking outside the box when the box was trying to kill us all." After the communication ends, Captain Ironwood approaches Zack's station with something that might actually be a smile. "Porter, I owe you an apology. When this mission started, I thought we were all going to die because I had to trust our lives to someone whose primary qualification was being related to the right person. And now? Now I think we're all alive because I had to trust our lives to someone who wasn't smart enough to know he couldn't do it." Admiral Steelheart joins them, carrying what appears to be official paperwork. "Porter, effective immediately, you're being promoted to senior navigator and receiving a commendation for exceptional service under impossible circumstances." Also, she adds with what might be the first genuine smile anyone has ever seen her make, "I'm personally recommending that the Naval Academy revise their training programs to include a course called Creative Problem Solving for Impossible Situations." Murphy appears on the bridge, covered in engine grease and wearing the satisfied expression of someone whose pessimistic predictions have been proven wonderfully wrong. "Lad, I've been engineering for 30 years and I've never seen anything like what you just did. You turned a death trap into a highway by simply choosing to see it differently." Dr. Know-it-all nods enthusiastically. "The implications for navigation theory are staggering. We've been approaching cosmic phenomena as obstacles to be overcome rather than systems to be understood and worked with." "So what you're all saying," Zack observes, "is that I accidentally revolutionized space navigation by being too stupid to do it the right way?" "That's actually exactly what we're saying," Captain Ironwood admits. "Cool," Zack replies, settling back in his navigation chair. "So, where are we going next?" The bridge erupts in laughter, the kind of laughter that comes from people who have just survived the impossible and lived to tell about it. Outside the viewport, the stars shine with the welcoming light of normal physics and predictable behavior. And somewhere in the distance, the Shattered Nebula continues its eternal dance, no longer a graveyard of ships, but a testament to the power of seeing solutions where others see only problems. Thanks to one inexperienced navigator who was too young to know better, humanity has learned that sometimes the most impossible challenges require the most impossible solutions. The fleet continues toward home, carrying 50,000 saved lives and the knowledge that the universe's deadliest puzzles sometimes just need someone brave enough, or foolish enough, to solve them the wrong way.